What is Meta You? It is the ability to go beyond your limitations and beyond your current career and create the life and the business that you really want to create.
All right, guys. So our next speaker, I am so excited. Probably more excited about having William popping on than I was about anybody else, which not to discount. But William is, I'm going to add him to the stream really fast. There he is. Say hi to William Lam.
Hello.
So William is an NLP specialist, coach, trainer. And for any of you guys that are familiar with NLP, maybe William, you can talk to him about what NLP is. And then I'll dive into why I love you so much.
For sure. So, I mean, there are many things that can be said about NLP, but one of the biggest things is its ability. It's a toolbox for programming the mind so that you can do exactly what you want. Because oftentimes people find that their mind is really the ultimate blockage from, where they want to go. So if you can remove the blockage, get rid of the programming that is holding us back, we can simply accomplish anything. So
yeah, very cool. So I asked William, so I actually have an experience probably about a month ago, right? I had a friend text me and said, hey, I'm going to take this class. Do you want to take it with me? I said, absolutely. When is it? She said, tomorrow. And it's for 5 days or a week or whatever. And I was like, all right, let me see if I can rearrange some things. And I honestly didn't know what I was getting into. I knew it was NLP, and I'm familiar with NLP because of a little bit of Tony Robbins and a few different things. And when I got there, it was William and I did a couple of calls before once I signed up, just so I knew what I was getting into. But when I got there, it was probably a little different than I was expecting. But it's absolutely life-changing. And so the reason I asked William to be on this today is I see so often that realtors or humans or anything, like we literally, this whole webinar is all about teaching you how to do things and what you should be doing. And oftentimes people don't take action, or they have a limiting belief or whatnot. And so William is a master at programming the brain. So I wanted him to be on here to really dive into some things you can do, also communication. So I'm going to let you take it over for a minute, William, and just go from there. And then I'll ask you some questions. Does that work?
Totally. So if you were to think about the goals that you have, right? And all of us really as human beings have some sort of goals. When we think about those goals, sometimes we have this vision of, it being totally magnificent and it's going to be achieved. You're going to accomplish it and it's going to look, sound, feel amazing when you get there. However, most people, I would say a good chunk of the majority of the people will have a goal in mind. And if they set a goal that may be a little bigger or a lot bigger, they begin to have visuals or sound or feelings inside that are like, no, that's not going to work. Right? People have those visuals in their mind, like how it's not going to work and how things are going to turn out not the way they want. And that's simply a recipe for anxiety in a sense, right? And so that actually causes people oftentimes to set goals that are smaller than what they deserve. And that's a problem for a lot of entrepreneurs, for a lot of people in sales, a lot of executives and owners of businesses. And with the many people that we've worked with and we've trained to eliminate that pattern of behavior. It's so micro of a behavior that oftentimes we don't notice, right? Because let me ask you this. Imagine yourself making, let's say, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000 extra per year. There may be some of you that might be like, oh yeah, I could totally do that. And there may be some of you that might be like, oh, that feels a little uneasy. Yeah, that feeling is actually an indication of what is feeding your mind at the unconscious level that you may not know that you're doing, right? Maybe a visual, or maybe a sound, maybe a feeling. And what happens is, let's say we move that goal to a monthly goal, Let's say we start saying, hey, what if you imagine making 100,000, 200, 400, 500 or more per month, or even $1 million a month? How does that make you feel inside? Some of you might be like, excited. Some of you might be like, no way, that can't. I mean, being genuinely honest with oneself, you might feel like that's unrealistic, right? I'll point this out real quick. What is unrealistic is simply what we cannot make real and convince ourselves of it with a convincing feeling within ourselves. So if you can't make it realistic in your mind, you can't make it realistic outside. So what we really simply do, it's not just NLP. We do a number of techniques, but what you'll find is all of them are here to help us accomplish one thing, which is to make whatever you want to come true in the physical first become true in the mind, so that all of your micro behavior, all of your communication, all of your thinking, and all of your emotions, even your emotions, support you naturally, easily, and effortlessly in accomplishing what you want. That's a little bit longer of an explanation.
I love it. So how would somebody who wants to create something that has this idea start creating it in their mind?
Okay. So let's say we set a goal. Yeah. Let me make sure we get everyone on the same page. So we set a goal, right? Are you saying, how are we going to make sure everyone can do what I just said in their mind?
Yeah. I mean, I just think people set goals. It sounds good. And maybe they're resolute, right? Or it doesn't like resonate. And you said it doesn't resonate because they don't visualize, they don't feel it, they don't get that emotion yet. So like, how do they go about creating that?
So first of all, it's a matter of focus. Yeah, some people, you'll hear this in the training and coaching industry, energy flows where attention goes. And there's another way to put it that's really easy to comprehend for pretty much anyone. It's that what you play on the stage of your mind is a preview of coming attraction. Let's break that down for a second. What that really is saying is when you play something in your mind, whether it's visual, sound, sensations, whatever you play in your mind, it's literally like an instruction set, a configuration of what you want your life to be. The next moment, the next moment, the next moment. This is what I want. If you display something you don't want in your mind, you may think, oh yeah, I'm preparing for the worst. But really, you could do that. At the same time, you want to move on from focusing on that as quickly as possible. Because what happens is the mind will begin to execute naturally what you place on the stage of your mind. Another perspective, a metaphor. Let's say you're the captain. You're the captain of this awesome, let's say private yacht. Yeah. And the captain says, we're going to go there. And the crew just does it, right? The captain doesn't need to know how to cook all the food. The captain doesn't need to know how to where the toiletry is and the captain doesn't need to know how to, change the beddings and the sheets. The captain doesn't need to know everything or like how to fuel the ship, the engineering. The captain doesn't need to know everything. Yes, the captain probably know a lot about all of those things, but the captain doesn't need to know everything. Now, you may say, yeah, of course the captain doesn't. But many of us oftentimes are so concerned about the how, we gave up on the why. We gave up on what we want and why we want some things because we're like, I can't figure out how to do that. Can't figure out how to make, break through the 50K, 100K, 200K, 250K a month, or not to mention $1 million, right? Or even a year. And so what you'll find is if you begin step one, to pay attention to what goes through your mind, right? I'm not asking you to write down every thought you have because there are too many. Frankly, throughout the day, there are many, many thoughts we have. But really, the thoughts that trigger any emotion, I want you to pay attention to it. That's the first step. And if you want to, write it down on your phone, write it down on a piece of paper, those thoughts. And then ask yourself, are those thoughts literally congruent or aligned with what you want? Because the captain needs to know what you want. And if your thoughts are not congruent, the metaphor is the captain is using the thought as the GPS coordinate to guide the ship. So if your thoughts are not congruent, which many of us sometimes have random thoughts that has nothing to do with our goals or it does not help with our goals, It's time to become aware of them and then eliminate anything that does not have anything to do with our goal in a positive manner. Yeah. And then step 2 would then to be asking yourself, what can I learn from these thoughts? Because some of those thoughts will stay. You will be like, why am I thinking, what if this happened? What if that happened? Have you asked yourself that? Like, I think everyone would, right? When you have a bigger goal, you tend to ask yourself, what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't? What if this happened? What if that happened? That moment is the moment where you got to ask yourself, what can I learn from this thought? Yeah. And of course, we spent our trainings focusing a lot on how you can learn from something and eliminate it. But simply put, the basic formula is become aware of the thoughts. And if there's anything negative, that once you are aware of it and it doesn't go away, you ask yourself, what can I learn from it so it can be removed, so it can be resolved? Step 3 then is to ask yourself, what do I want instead? That's very important, because if you don't know what you want instead, even if you resolve the negative stuff in your mind's like, okay, where's this energy going to go? Where's this attention going to go? So you got to place these things that you want in your mind. So to give you guys a very solid task list, I would ask you to do 2 things. 1, design a list of 50 things that you really want. And for those of you who want to achieve even more, write 100 things. Now, it's gotta be material. Here's why. I'm not saying material is important. What I'm saying is material is easy to measure. So write down 100 things that you want, things for you, not for others. Yeah. This is not the time to say, I want to save the world from hunger or poverty. This is the time to say, what do I want that I haven't allowed myself to want, or I haven't allowed myself to have? Yeah. This is also a really good thing, because you'll get to motivate your unconscious. Another list would be 100 things or 50 things, right? Depending on if you're up to the challenge of 100 things. It's not that much, actually, because in our private coaching and training practice, we ask people to write a lot more than that. Yeah. So 100 experiences that you want to have, whether it's to win an award and you're, become, like I was hearing earlier, Rookie of the Year, or whatever award that you want to win in real estate or in whatever your business is, or, just going to Bora Bora, right? With your family, being able to treat your family. Why not, right? So any experiences like that, write them down, 50 to 100 things at the very least. And when you start writing these lists, some of you may be like, this is easy. That's good. Do it, right? Some of you might be like, that's really hard. I don't think about that. It's time to start thinking about it, because this is not about being materialistic. I'll be clear here. It's about giving yourself a very specific, tangible incentive, your unconscious, yeah, something to track. It's the coordinates. So you're saying, hey, I want these goals and I want these things. I want these experiences. And of course, write it alongside your real estate goals, your financial goals, or whatever. But I'll tell you right now, money doesn't motivate people necessarily unless you attach them to meaningful experiences, things, and or relationships or other things, right? And if you can then attach that money you earn to 100 things, 100 experiences, then you have all the reasons in the world for your unconscious mind to be motivated. Because the captain may say, I want to go there, but the crew might not be motivated. Yeah. So anyway, I would say those are the steps.
Yeah. I love this because, like I said, the reason I have you on here is the real estate industry is not a lack of how to do anything. And things sound good, or I think we get in ourselves and are like, or yes. And so it's like, have this of like, you can literally program your brain to have anything you want, right? One of the things that you've said I thought was interesting is last night. So I am a private client of yours, and we were having a call, and you said, hey, Spring, I want you to think, what if this? And I was like, And you're like, I want you to go to this level. I want you to think at this level, because your brain will then automatically start thinking further past that of how do you get here instead of here. And it was like, I've heard that before, but it was always like, create a stretch goal. I never knew why. And so maybe if you can hit on that, because it's like, I do believe like a lot of people are playing small because they don't believe they can accomplish it, right? Where the reality is you almost have to have that stretch goal so your brain will start figuring out how you can get there.
Brilliant question. In fact, this question will allow me to say something that will bring so many things together. So it's in the beginning, you asked me, what is NLP, or what is this thing that we do? I mean, we do go beyond the scope and quite far beyond the scope of NLP. We get into, other programming techniques of the mind. What I will say is that it's never about the goals, and it's never about the things or even the experiences sometimes, right? It is, and it's not, depending on who you are, what's important to you, right? Because some of you, it's about the time being able to spend with your family and have no worries, no anxiety about money, and you could just buy the meal that your kids want instead of saying, I'm going to save $10 here because it's tight, right? And none of that, right? Imagine being able to have total freedom. That whatever that means, that goal, it's really not about that goal, actually. It's about being the person who can easily achieve this goal, because then it's inevitable. Because so many people in society chase goals, and that's cool. But when they get there, they're like, wait, what's next, right? And it's cool to set those goals and hit them. Yet at the same time, is to get really that feeling of total fulfillment and inevitable success, you want to be the person who can easily do this again and again and again and again. That way it's consistent. That way you can have what you want all the time, whenever you want. So to go back, right, there's no lack of the house, like Spring said. Also, there's no lack of abundance in this world. Yeah. So there are some subtle programmings that we gotta consider. One is, how many of you, and you don't obviously need to say it out loud, right? You consider this in your mind. How many of you are like, I can only have either great health or great success? Some of you might be like, oh, that's not true logically, but something inside of you are like, okay, I actually kind of believe that. Oh, dang, right? Some of you might be like, I can either have great wealth or great family. Because if I want to achieve wealth, I won't have the time for family. Some of you may be thinking that. I'll tell you right now, none of this is true. You can have it all. The dichotomy in the programming of society is one of the biggest problems that we need to get rid of. It's the either I succeed or I fail. I'll illustrate this simply. Either I succeed or I fail. That's not actually a good mentality. You may say, well, that's totally true though, isn't it? I'll tell you, it's not. What if you could either succeed or succeed more? What if you could earn the goal that you have, right? The amount financially, or have all the other goals achieved, or you could have even more than you expect. You're surprised by it by the end of the year. If you begin to have only those choices, you'll realize that the life quality, the quality of life that we live, is simply dependent on the choices we give ourselves. If we don't even allow ourselves to have choices that are not absolutely what we want, because why would you give yourself a choice that you don't want, right? If you only give yourself 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 choices that you want, and all you focus on, and of course you resolve the things, it's not like you ignore and suppress anything else, you resolve them, right? By learning from them, by going through, investing in yourself, taking trainings, doing what you got to do, right? Like being here. Those things will help you be able to think, oh, these are the choices. One time, we were working with an individual. He's built a 9-digit company, very, very successful individual. And it was a fun, friendly, we're friends too. So he asked me this simple question. He's like, how do you make sure that people remember you? Now, I'm not going to tell you who he is, but I'm going to tell you that's a very important question. Now, you may say, I don't care if people remember me, right? But it's the structure of the question I'm wanting to illustrate to all of us. He asked, how do I make sure people remember me? Obviously, he's achieved the wealth he wants and a number of other things. Things are going great. He felt like he was creating something, but people doesn't seem to remember that it was him, right? I asked, when did you decide that people will either remember you or forget you? Notice the subtlety behind his language. He asked me, how do you make sure people remember you? Which presupposes either people remember or forget. Then I asked the question, what if either people will remember you or they will remember you forever? So begin to consider in your life, how often time do you give yourself the option of failing? or failing, whatever that means, right? Or not hitting your goal. You may say, oh man, I got to have a way out so I could be not stressed or anxious if I don't. That's actually not very smart. Let me tell you something. Your unconscious mind, and your mind is simply capable of 1,000,000 times 1,000,000,000 calculation per second, according to National Geographic. And frankly, I think that it's more. That is a lot of calculation per second. Now, consider how much you can do in an hour or throughout the course of a day or a week, a month, a year. The calculations that go through your mind, if you truly tap into its resources, it's infinitely more powerful than we realize. That being said, if we give ourselves a way out, and that the unconscious tends to take the path of least resistance, and that way out, let's say that's actually the path of least resistance, you might unconsciously self-sabotage so that you don't have to hit your goal and hold yourself accountable. And you may not have to go do the new thing that may seem scary, whatever, right? But I'll tell you this right now, and I'm using that as a big but. If you only give yourself the choice, let's say your goal is to hit 100 grand, whether it's a year or a month, let's say a month, yeah, that would be great. Everyone hit 100 grand a month, plenty of abundance, right? So let's say your goal is to hit 100 grand a month, which is one of our signature things that we help our clients do, and or beyond. What you'll find is that 100K, it's not about the 100K, it's about growing to be the person who can hit that, first of all. Second of all is, what choices do you give yourself? Do you give yourself either hit 100K or not? Or do you give yourself the either I hit the 100K now or I hit the 100K the next month? That's actually still not as good. Of course, be whatever realistic it is, right? I'll tell you right now, whatever realistic is what you can make real in your mind. So if anything, it's not about improving your skills necessarily. Yeah, do it. At the same time, it's more important to realize the mental skill of making something real in your mind is actually just as, if not more important. Because your mind with that calculation power can naturally, effortlessly create all the steps for you. Naturally, you've been through this. You've experienced where you set a goal in the past, and naturally you found yourself taking certain steps, calling certain people, saying certain things. And it happened, right? So being able to set that and say, these are the choices. Either I hit 100 grand or 110 or 150. And your unconscious mind's like, well, the path of least resistance will be 100. I better do that. And you got to hold yourself accountable, because your mind's smart. It knows everything, all the secrets about you, right? So if you're like, I'm just going to trick myself into it, your mind knows. You got to be truly committed to it and lean in to trust your mind as well. The captain, this is the flip side, doesn't need to know everything, right? So it doesn't need to know how the crew's going to get to the destination. You need to know how to motivate your crew, incentivize your crew, and then allow your crew to do its thing.
Yeah.
Trust it.
So crazy. I can tell you from even just like coaching with you for the last month, how much my life has changed. Like we were talking about this just yesterday, of just some minor shifts. And it's just a little bit about the language that I'm using with myself, right? And also seeing things through. I'll ask myself, like, what is this a mirror of? Certain things have happened, and I'm like, what is this showing up? What does this mean to me? But I also love, one of the things you called me out on yesterday was I said everybody, and you said, who is everyone or everybody? Is that true, right? And I think that the thing about it is the universe or the world is all about the lens that you see things through. So maybe hit on that for just 1 second. I have 5 more minutes with you of really people's perception is the lens, and how can they maybe change that a little bit? I mean, I know it's all the mindset stuff, but maybe hit on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody is actually a really good point. Like bringing up that language is a very good point. When you think about everybody, right? Because sometimes we go out and we say everybody does this, and you'll see it in media, you'll see it, probably in our family conversations. People say everybody's this way or that way. It's simply through the lens of our perception, right? I'll give you another metaphor, because I think that everyone would enjoy this metaphor, and frankly, you've heard this metaphor, so you already know it. Think of it like this. Let's say all of us, yeah, and I don't know I may know some of you, but I don't know who you are because there are quite a few hundred people, if not more, here. I will say this. Let's say we have a live event at some point, right? And it's actually to celebrate because you've accomplished so much over the next several months, year, 2 years. And let's say, a couple years from now, a live event. And this live event is not, once again, it's to celebrate, and it's not anything but to celebrate. And I'll tell you why. It's because you've accomplished so much. And then one of you or a few of you or a group of you call Spring or myself and say, hey, I didn't realize how much this could change me. But by realizing that my perception of the world isn't always true, but it would affect my world. So I get to choose my perception and change my own world, regardless of its effect on, obviously, create win-win ecological perceptions, right? So you called us and you're like, we got to throw a party, a live event. We're going to be there. And it's going to be catered. And I got this phone call from you and I'm like, awesome. Of course I'll come, right? Let's celebrate. I love that. I care about that. So I'm like, where are we going? You're like, oh, well, we're going to this place. It's very special. I'm like, just tell me, where is this, right? You're like, oh, it's in New York City. We have a jet that will pick you up. I'm like, yes, I like it. That's traveling in style. Let's do this. So on our way, right, we have this big, huge jet that we're all in. And I'm like, okay, so where are we going? Where's this restaurant that you booked out? And you're like, oh, William, we know you like this kind of cuisine. So, and we all do too. So we're going to go to this place in Midtown in Manhattan. I'm like, hallelujah. I've been there. It's amazing. I love it. Right. So let me ask you a weird question then. So I asked all of you a weird question. I'm like, okay, where are we going? Are we going to the place on the map or are we going to the place on the map? Now you might be like, oh, that sounds like the same question. What's the difference? Are we going to the place on the map or are we going to the place on the map? Linguistically, language-wise, there's no difference. The words, there's no difference. But the meaning behind it, there's everything. It's everything. So let me say this, and this is a very important concept. I think if you pick up anything from this conversation, from this interview, this is the key. The map that references the restaurant, it's not actually the restaurant, right? There's no physical restaurant on this Google map or on this piece of paper. That would be ridiculous. It's simply a reference point, right? We also, and I want you guys to look at the camera if you're able to see, or look at the screen. Many of us have a map and we say the economy is not good. Is it the economy out there or is the economy right here? Is the economy simply a collective perception of what's going on? Or is it? Right? So really think about, are clients saying no out there, or are clients are you creating something, a behavior, right? Because think about it, there are no resistant clients, only inflexible communicators. So when you get more flexible and learn the skills, improve yourself, you'll find that there's no way that you'll run into, and frankly, you could also even design your clients. There's a number of things you can do, but really consider what's going on in your map. Don't think what's going on in your map is simply the world. That's not the case. That's not reality. Yeah. And I'm not going to say your map is not accurate, right? Because we all distort, generalize. We all delete things, right? You've seen keys in front of you. After you search for hours, you're like, where are my keys? And your family is like, there's your key. And it's right in front of you. You've experienced that. That's a simple distortion or deletion, right? How often time do we do that when it comes to real estate sales, when it comes to our business, when it comes to our personal life, our health, our performance in general? Is it in here or is it out there? Really begin to understand the distinction. What is realistic is not what's realistic out there. It's right here. So if anything, take away this. Make what you want real right here. However wild, however crazy, this is about you proving to yourself. There's a clip on YouTube. You guys should watch it. If you search for Man of Steel, Takeoff, There's a conversation his father had with him. His father said, I'm going to paraphrase, the only way to find out how much we're capable of is to continue to test our limits. Set goals that are beyond belief and allow yourself to either succeed or succeed even more.
Mic drop. William, I'm just so grateful for you. So again, like, I've surrounded myself with a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing coaches, a lot of them in the real estate space, and you were the next step for me. I've got a lot of how, and something has to shift. I tell him this, something has to connect differently in my brain for me to go where I wanted to go next. So forever grateful for you. Thank you for taking the 30 minutes with us. People are asking if you have a podcast. His info will be in the MetaU. He's part of the MetaU Mastermind group, and we're going to be doing some stuff together in the future. So I'll get you guys more additional information, and I'll put his information if you want to reach out to him personally. Cool? Okay. Thank you so much.